We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'll be your host this morning. We're going to address a very serious problem that requires your attention, your participation, and your activism. For those of you who aren't aware, on January 9th, the federal government designated basically the entire White River Watershed as a national Blueway. And that may catch some of you completely off guard. Let's understand the implications of this. The White River Watershed covers basically from Springfield all the way over to Poplar Bluff, actually almost all the way to Cape Girardeau, and virtually the entire northern portion of Arkansas, all the way down to the Mississippi River below Little Rock. For the record, what this is another attempt by the federal government to essentially do what they did back in the early 2000s, where they confiscated all the property up around Eminence and took over the rivers up there. Now, I've posted up on our Facebook page and on our website links for this, where you can find the maps that are associated with this, multiple stories about it. We're going to address a couple of the issues, and then we're going to discuss the recent passage of the anti-Agenda 21 law that just made its way through the House and the Senate in Missouri and landed on the governor's desk. Because this White River National Blueway is Agenda 21 in practical application. And I want to know if this is going to be barred and prohibited by the implementation of the anti-Agenda 21 Missouri legislation that just was approved by the House and the Senate yesterday. Now, if the governor doesn't sign it, in 15 days it becomes law. If he vetoes it, it was passed by a veto-proof majority of the House, just like the Second Amendment Preservation Act, which is also sitting on his desk. I'm calling for the governor to sign both immediately. Don't wait the 15 days, Mr. Nixon, and allow these to pass. Simply sign them while you're still governor, because it won't be long before we impeach you. And frankly, if you don't sign them, those are just two more reasons for us to impeach you. Now, I'm going to, just so you understand the implications of this, I'm going to read over a couple of different bullets on some of these press releases that are out there. And I have to admit, I'm just becoming aware of this Blueway. And when you hear about it, and we discuss it this morning, you're going to be stunned and shocked and amazed. What I want you to do right now is I want you to get out a pen and paper, and I want you to take some quick notes. And I want you to put on your critical thinking skills cap. This is the one that says, when we read an article or a press release, or we hear discussion from some politician, we always read between the lines. And the reason I want you to do that is because when you read between the lines, you'll see exactly the motivation and the intention of this project. So here we go. Remember, by the way, that Agenda 21 is always characterized by a couple of different key phrases or key words. Number one, anytime you hear the word sustainability. And number two, anytime you hear public-private partnership. Because what those designate, and by the way, I've got links to the original Agenda 21 stuff up on the website by the UN, so you can hear it straight out of the horse's mouth. So, here's what I want you to hear. This is the second National Blueway. In 2012 of May, Secretary of the Interior, Ken Salazar, an Obama sycophant, established the National Blueways system. Under what authority? What congressional act gave him the authority to create a National Blueways system? None. But in May of 2012, he created and established a new designation for rivers and watersheds of national significance, designated to promote and conserve economic, recreational, and natural values of healthy river systems, blah, 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 blah. The initiative is part of, here we go, President Obama's America's Great Outdoors Initiative to establish a community-driven conservation and recreation agenda for the 21st century. Now, I want you to listen and hear between the lines. The initiative is part of President Obama's America's Great Outdoors Initiative. So we couch it in a phraseology that sounds nice, that people all get behind. Oh, who couldn't get behind America's Great Outdoors Initiative? To establish a community-driven conservation and recreation agenda for the 21st century. Conservation and recreation agenda for the 21st century. The nation's second National Blueway. The first one was up in Connecticut. This one was announced January 9th. It had no public comment period. It had no open discussion with stakeholders. But listen to the stakeholders, the way that they classify the stakeholders. You're going to be blown away when you read the propaganda that has been written about this. And I'm telling you, the people who put this crap out have nothing Goebbels had nothing from the Nazi days on these people. This is propaganda, hook, line, and sinker, front and center, in your face. If you don't recognize it, it's because you're asleep while you're reading it. Mark Pryor, by the way, your senator down in Arkansas for our Arkansas friends, and Congressman Tim Griffin were signatories on this, and they were there for the public announcement and the fair and the patting on the back and the whole 9 yards. This is a state, local, and conservation leaders were at a ceremony in Little Rock, Arkansas, to make the announcement. Deputy Secretary Hayes says the collaboration, listen to this now, taking place in the White River watershed is a model of successful river conservation for the 21st century. Notice the key word, the phrase 21st century, that they keep inserting over and over and over. The National Blueway designation, notice what we say, designation, recognizes that strong, diverse partnerships, remember the key phrase, public and private partnerships, always signifies Agenda 21, recognizes that strong, diverse partnerships are the best way to address the modern-day threats to our nation's most important rivers, and the White River is an outstanding example of that approach. The river is the recreational and economic lifeblood of communities from the Ozarks to the Mississippi River, and users and river lovers of all stripes have banded together to protect the White River watershed, maintain this magnificent resource for the region and for the nation. Now, here's the key phrases. River users and river lovers, okay? When you hear the list of sponsors for this, I want you to understand exactly who these players are, and we're going to get into that after the break. But remember, they keep couching this as a public-private partnership, right? Public and private, these are all, they would lead you to believe that this is all stakeholders, and that's their phrase, not mine, stakeholders, okay? We're going to take a break. They would like you to believe that these are stakeholders. Now, the key phrase, the word stakeholders, would indicate that these are people who have a vested interest in how this land is dealt with and what the uses can be. It can be put to. Wait until you understand what a stakeholder is and how they classify a stakeholder. It is vastly different from your definition of stakeholder. And remember what I have said to you over and over and over and over again. They use definitions and they change the definitions of words to betray you, to steal from you, to tyrannize and oppress you, and here we go in full-blown action. Make no mistake about it, this is a takeover of 17.8 million acres of land.
Looking for a new or used pistol, shotgun, or rifle? West Plains Pawn and Gun has over 450 firearms in stock. All your favorite models like Beretta, Glock, Smith & Wesson, Kimber, and many, many more. West Plains Pawn and Gun is also a Class 3 arms dealer, so if they don't have it on the shelf, West Plains Pawn and Gun can order it for you. Even those hard-to-get guns. West Plains Pawn and Gun, 1713 U.S. Highway 160 West in West Plains, or online at westplainspawn.com.
When our founding fathers secured the constitutional right of the people to keep and bear arms, they also added that right shall not be infringed.
We're commandeering the radio station in the name of...
This is Cooper of Cooper & Company. Tune in weekday mornings from 6 to 8 for your chance to win Glenn Beck's book, Control, Exposing the Truth About Guns. Like I said, if you want a copy, just listen in to Cooper & Company weekday mornings. You can catch Glenn Beck on the Ozarks Best News Talk 107.1 The Point from 2 to 5 every weekday.
All right. Guys, if at the end of this program you are not up in arms and ready to take this battle directly to our state legislature and the federal government, you're listening to the wrong radio program. The key operative function of this program is to educate and inform you and then motivate you so that you will take action. And if you take no action, go find some other show to listen to where all they do is tell you about the problems but never offer a solution. We, on the other hand, at America's Voice Now, and I, will not tolerate inaction. Because if you are inactive, you are part of the problem and you are never going to be part of the solution. Get off your duff, get off your couch, get out of your car, start fighting now. Start fighting back. Be active, be a participant, or be a loser. And by that I mean literally a loser, because you will lose your property. When you see the map of this thing and you understand that it basically covers everything from Springfield all the way over to Cape Girardeau, everything within the sound of this radio station, within the immediate broadcast range of this home station, is covered under this act. This act of treason against the American people and the people of Missouri and Arkansas. Flowing for 722 miles from its headwater in the Ozarks to its mouth at the Mississippi, the White River drains a watershed spanning, get this, 17.8 million acres in 60 counties in 2 states. It's home to 1.2 million people who rely on the economic impact that recreation, tourism, agriculture, and commerce along these rivers provide to watershed communities. You'll keep hearing the words recreation, tourism, agriculture, and commerce. I've read about 9 articles on this. All of them use the same talking points. There's no creative thought in writing any of these articles. All they do is keep taking the same talking points and driving them home like a nail with a hammer. This was nominated for this designation. The White River National Blueway and by the way, get that word and that phrase into your head. White River National Blueway. That's what they're calling this treason. Listen to this. Nominated for this designation by 26 stakeholder groups. Now, here's what the groups look like. Wait till you hear this. These are stakeholders in your local community. These are stakeholders in your lifestyle. These are stakeholders in your economic value and impact. Remember what I said, public and private partnership. But wait until you hear the public aspect of this. It's a sham and an absolute unmitigated BS lie. The support organizations, federal agencies, and ventures. And by the way, just to couch this as any federal agency as a venture, in and of itself ought to tell you everything that you need to know about extra-constitutional administrative agencies running and operating this national government for their own ends. USFWS, that's Fish and Wildlife Service. USACE, I'm not even sure what that is. USGS in Missouri, the Cooperative Fish and Wildlife Research Unit. In Arkansas, it's the USGS, Arkansas Cooperative Fish and Wildlife Research Unit. The USDA, Missouri. USDA, Arkansas. USDA Forest Service, Mark Twain National Forests. USDA Forest Service, Ozark St. Francis National Forest. National Park Service, Buffalo National River. National Park Service, Arkansas Post National Memorial. Lower Mississippi Valley Joint Venture. Lower Mississippi Valley Joint Venture. Remember what we said about joint public-private partnerships and how they are Agenda 21 personified. Those are the federal agencies and ventures. Since when is our federal government entitled to go into a venture of any kind? They're not there to venture into the unknown. They're there with one express purpose, to preserve the rights and liberties of the individuals within this nation. That's all they exist for. Nothing else. Not the redistribution of your wealth, not the taking of your land, not the unconscionable abuse and oppression, not your surveillance and your monitoring. That's not what they're there for. They're there to protect your rights and your liberty. That's it. State and local government. These are the stakeholders, by the way. So let's understand, when we talk about stakeholders, almost every one of them is a government agency. Now, they don't have a stake in your butt. They don't have a stake in your farm. They don't have a stake in your water. They don't have a stake in your business. They don't have a stake in your family lifestyle. They don't have a stake in your health care. They don't have a stake in anything about you. They don't have a stake in your child's education. They don't have a stake in the homestead that your family has built and created here 120 years ago. None of that. But they're called stakeholders so that you, the unassuming public who is willing to drink this crap Kool-Aid, will believe that those around you in a Delphi moment, in a Delphi method moment, have agreed under consensus that they're a stakeholder who speaks on your behalf. Nothing, ladies and gentlemen, could be further from the truth. Local and state government. Missouri Department of Conservation. Arkansas Game and Fish. Arkansas Natural Heritage. Arkansas Forestry. City of Augusta, Arkansas. City of Clarington, Arkansas. Arkansas Waterways Association. An association is not a government agency, or it shouldn't be. It is in this case, but it shouldn't be. Okay, those are the state and local government groups. I already read you the list of the federal agencies and the ventures. I think vultures is a more appropriate word. Now wait until you hear the non-governmental organizations that are determining your fate. Ducks Unlimited. National Wildlife Refuge Association. The Nature Conservancy in Missouri. The Nature Conservancy in Arkansas, the Conservation Fund, Audubon, Missouri, Audubon, Arkansas, Arkansas Canoe Club, Arkansas Association of Conservation Districts. Now, for the record, I don't know how big the Arkansas Canoe Club is, but they keep naming that organization over and over and over and over as representative of the 1.6 million people who live in this district. And I got to tell you, I don't know what they paid Debbie Doss, the conservation chair for the Arkansas Canoe Club, to put her name in here as a non-governmental organization that sounds like something that is not already an activist organization, completely abdicated and committed to the Agenda 21 implementation here in the United States. But for whatever reason, the Arkansas Canoe Club is all over this and all over every one of these press releases, prominently named over and over and over, and is as an example of the representatives who have elected to betray your trust, your property, your ownership, your right to your own land, your right to your own property, and your right to do with it as you so choose. Now, here we get to the most impressive aspect of this thing. Wait till you hear this. This is the public-private partnership we're talking about. You know what the local businesses are? 2. Just 2. Greenway Equipment Incorporated. Sponsor, lead official Tommy Hall, Vice President of Service Operations. And the other prominent local business, G&G Irrigation LLC, David Graves, owner. That's it. That's the public aspect of this. That's the public part of the public-private. That's the private part of the public and private coalition support organizations. The private part is 2 lousy businesses. Just 2. That's it. 2. And one of them is literally an LLC, which tells you it's probably a very, very relatively minor business in reference to the overall scheme of things. So the question I have is this. Who are these people that they think that they have the right to step in here and grab a hold of your business? I'm going to look these guys up right now. Here's what Manta has to say about G&G Irrigation. 2 employees. Gotta love it. 2 employees. G&G Irrigation LLC is the local business, one of the 2, that has listed here as the local businesses, the private part of the public-private partnership, a.k.a. Agenda 21. An irrigation company located in McCrory, Arkansas. Got to ask you, Arkansans, what is going on with this company? Here's their phone number. Let's call them up and find out what they have to say about this. 870-731-5805. That's 870-731-5805. No website information found, by the way, for these people. So I don't know. Is this guy a shill for? Is he maybe sit on one of these other boards? Let's see. It was established and incorporated in Arkansas. That's the only notation I can find on it. David Graves is the president. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, hi. This is Pastor Bill Cruz from Indiana. A friend of mine that lives just over the border into Arkansas encouraged me to call you because I guess you're talking about the White River National Blueway Initiative.
Yes, I am, and I'm all over it. Go ahead.
During the Clinton administration, I organized an effort to stop that same nonsense in Northwest Indiana, Illinois, and Michigan. It was a wildlife refuge during back in 1996 that we found out about, and when it was all said and done, we had over 5,000 people that stood up against it. And they totally removed their website and everything, but it took us 6 years to get rid of this, monstrosity. This comes right out of the UN document that we have here, that Dr. Michael Kaufman is the most learned expert on the subject.
Right. And
actually, this is a implementation, Mike, of a treaty that our U.S. Senate rejected. So they are unlawful.
They're implementing this without Senate ratification of the UN Agenda 21 treaty, which was signed by 178 other countries. This country rejected it. Our Senate refused to sign it, and they're implementing it in a backdoor methodology via zoning and this type of nonsense. Make no mistake about it. What's going on here is that our heritage, our national sovereignty, our independence, and your freedom and liberty are being sold down the river by a bunch of hacks, political gamesmen, and carpetbaggers who make up groups and organizations like the USDA, the Fish and Wildlife Service, and all of these other organizations. I'll tell you what, I'm going to put you on hold. We've got to take a break.
Cool.
I want to get your information. You and I need to join forces and start a literal and figurative war over this issue. And
I call to encourage you.
All right. Well, hang on a second. I'll put you on hold for 1 second.
Cool deal.
Folks, let me tell you something. If you're not aware of what's going on with this stuff, you are in big trouble. Make yourself educated. Get yourself informed. Motivate and influence and activate those in the circle of influence that you have around you. And let's take this to the line. We need to stop this now.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu.
We get to walk across the bridge, and we get to celebrate these 3 women's lives.
A victory vigil last night in Cleveland for the 3 women who managed to escape the man holding them captive for 10 years. Prosecutors saying he would consider the death penalty.
Based on the facts, I fully intend to seek charges for each and every act of sexual violence, rape, each day of kidnapping, every felonious assault.
Cuyahoga County Prosecutor Tim McGinty. In Bangladesh, a survivor found 17 days after the collapse of a garment factory, which killed more than 1,000 people.
She was buried inside the prayer room in the basement of the building. Rescuers heard a voice calling out and used handsaws to cut through the rubble.
Fox Radio's Simon Owen. Workers describe her as being in remarkable shape. Reports say that the woman was a seamstress. Fox News. We report, you decide.
I'd like to thank our sponsor, Wits End Classic Barbershop, who is the sponsor of our telephone lines this morning. They're located on the square in West Plains. It's Wits End Classic Barbershop. Thanks to our friends over at West Plains Pawn and Gun. You can find them on the web at westplainspawn.com. They can be reached at 417-256-3000, and they're located on Route 160, about a mile past Walmart on the right-hand side. 400 guns undercover. Pizza Hut, our friends down there on Porter Wagoner Boulevard. They have an outstanding lunch menu with salad, pizza, and pasta. Excellent opportunity for you to have a great lunch and eat well and something tasty. Our friends over at the Battery Station at 303 Washington Avenue. You can find them on the web at batterystation.com. Telephone 417-257-7799. Our friends over at Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance can be found on the web at ozarkmtnselfreliance.com. My friend Brian there can be reached at 870-492-4030. They're located a half-mile east of Walmart at 3225 Route 62, Mountain Home. My friend Mary over at Chantilly's Artisan Bakery, the best damn bakery in 100 miles. She's right off the square in West Plains at 2 Evans Arcade, and you can reach her at 255-2253. And my friend Bill Stone over at Stone Construction. If you're considering doing remodeling, custom or new construction, or anything light commercial, give Bill a call and have him bid on your project at 293-0116.
They say they want to control your guns, but what they really want to do is control you. Hi, it's Glenn Beck. Since the gun debate was settled in 1791, it's obvious this debate is really about control. Control over taxes, healthcare, schools, and yes, our Second Amendment rights. My new book, Control, Exposing the Truth About Guns, picks apart line by line the idiotic gun control arguments being spewed all over the media. From Piers Morgan to Michael Bloomberg to Rachel Maddow, the lies and now. Control, a new book by me, Glenn Beck. Pick it up or download your copy today. Visit glennbeck.com for more.
Weather is a service of News Talk 107.1 The Point. Contact Josh or Cody at 255-2548 for more information on making weather sponsorships part of your marketing plans.
From the Point Weather Center for this morning, mostly cloudy skies, clouds and showers through the day, the high 72. Mostly cloudy with a few showers this evening, then clearing later tonight, low 52. Tomorrow is going to be sunny, high 72. Sunny for Mother's Day, high 64. I'm staff meteorologist Jim Rinaldi, and for more information, visit my1071thepoint.com.
If you're looking for great deals on iPads or Kindles, look no further than your neighborhood Radio Shack authorized sales center. They've got great deals on the latest iPads and Kindles. Maybe you need a new GPS or an MP3 player to get your music library ready for those barbecues. Whatever your electronic needs, stop by your local neighborhood Radio Shack authorized dealer in West Plains at 1408 Southern Hills Shopping Center or call 417-256-1819.
All right, we're back. So here's where we are. This Pastor Bill Cruz, and I want you to hear this because I just had a discussion with him offline. He is from the region in Indiana where they have successfully fought off a project like this that was, what did you say it was, Pastor, 4 million acres?
Yeah, it was 4.3 million acres.
Okay, so this is 18 million acres, so it's four and a half times the size of what you guys dealt with. We already lost this once before when they went in and took over the North Fork River and all the rest of that, and they have literally beaten the living tar out of the landowners up there. The farmers, they've backed them off the river by 300-foot margins and, implemented all of this water restrictions and all of these different limitations on them. And this is the same exact thing. They may say that this is some innocuous, pleasant, conservation thing. But here's what you have to recognize, folks. Right on the website itself for the southeast region of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, one of their first buttons is law enforcement. So recognize what's going to happen here. These people are going to take this and they're going to run with this thing and they're going to cut your throat with it. So what I'd like to know from you, Pastor, is you started to mention to me something about eminent domain and the fact that can be turned back around. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. Education is so vital, and especially what you just said about law enforcement. People need to really get educated and organized. But what we found out with the eminent domain in our research is that actually that can be used positively for landowners because there are so many benefits to the landowner if they're threatened with eminent domain, that if everyone was fully educated, and we did that here along the Kankakee River Wildlife Refuge Project, we educated landowners that there were so many benefits to it that it actually scared the federal government away from us, because people realized that, hey, the federal government has to pay top dollar for their property, and unlike what people think, they're being threatened with pennies on the dollar, and also there are so many things that the government has to do. If you just read those regulations yourself, you'll find out that landowners can actually use that to scare these bureaucrats away.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think we need to do more than that. I've submitted a piece of legislation that would basically nullify all federal administrative agencies and state administrative agencies, nullify them from activity, and I've submitted it to a couple of our representatives for review. Here's the problem. We have these unaccountable bureaucrats who are unelected. They have no accountability back towards the people. They are extra constitutional on their face because they effectively pass laws. This is a law. You can call it whatever you like, but this is a law. And what they're going to do is implement tons of other law based on this designation and then utilize that to strip people of their property rights. And that is, for all intents and purposes, treason.
No, Mike, we had one meeting that was a real big turning point, and it was at our public library right in our backyard here, and the spokesman for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service opened themselves up for questions, and I asked them, in front of about 100 people, I asked him, I said, was this approved? Was this project approved legislatively by our elected officials? He said no. Now, this is key. He said it was done not legislatively, but by policy. Okay?
Really?
So he admitted, and I tell you, all 100 people stood up, and they were all very upset. And they realized, see, in America, we have this guarantee of a Republican form of government, and that's not talking about the Republican Party. That's talking about a representative form of government, and they're taking that away from us, is
right.
What they're doing. So none of this has been legislatively, lawfully approved, and it's very easy to prove this, but it's difficult to get your elected representatives to look at this realistically. And if you said that the legislation just passed yesterday that nullifies any kind of implementation of this, you definitely have the upper hand here, but you need to get organized, mobilized. And let me just briefly give you a contrast of two different stories here. I attended a meeting early on in '96 about the wildlife refuge that was being proposed on the southern tip of Illinois. It was a huge Cache River, Cypress Creek wildlife refuge. Now, the federal government was successful there. because there was a farmer there, a landowner that came up, and he was encouraging us landowners, to just go along and get along, and that there was no sense in fighting City Hall, and he convinced thousands of landowners to go along with that, garbage.
Right.
And I stood up and opposed it, and everybody, up here, we were just not going to go for it. And we won. God won the day for us. The one thing is, you have to realize that if you're standing against tyranny, and this is tyranny, make no mistake about it, this is soft tyranny. If you stand against tyranny, you win, no matter what happens, because standing up for righteousness is always victorious.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, you and I are going to communicate. I've got your phone number. After this show, I'm going to have a discussion with you. And we're going to bring this up before our local property rights coalition organizations. We must mobilize, ladies and gentlemen, to cease this invasion of our property and our land. And it is an invasion, make no mistake about it. This is a federal invasion on the independence and sovereignty of the states of Arkansas and Missouri. And I promise you one thing. If you let this slide, if you let this pass, you have essentially placed yourself into indentured servitude to these bureaucrats and these unelected, unaccountable individuals who will absolutely suck the lifeblood out of you, your land, your family, your property, your community, your city, your town, your village, and your rural area. This is treason. Make no mistake about it.
Mike, it is time for every one of us to stand up and be real Americans. The Americans that founded our nation were not afraid of anything but disappointing God. And that's what we need to be. We need to be real Americans no matter what happens to us. Otherwise, we can't look ourselves in the face and see ourselves as any different than people that are just cowering all over the world. We've got to start standing up, being real adults and not children about ourselves, standing up for the Constitution, standing up for the Bible, standing up for the vision that America was founded on, and at any cost. Even if it costs our lives, we need to do it.
I want you to go on to and I know you're in Indiana, so you don't listen to our program regularly, although you need to start. We've got a link that we stream this show every day on our website. I want you to go to americasvoicenow.org, and there's an article up there on the main header called 90 Days That Will Change the World. Or you can just type into a browser, America's Voice, 90 Days That Will Change the World. I want you to read that article, and you and I will have a discussion about it afterwards.
Cool.
All right. Hey, listen, thank you very much for your call, and thank you for pointing out to our listenership that either we will take an active role in this, or we will die. And that's the simple truth. You can call it any other nuance you want. This is life and death, folks.
Well, resistance to tyranny is obedience to God. That was the vision that our founders stood for. And now most Americans have been dissuaded away from that, and now they've taken it and flip-flopped it around, that resistance to tyranny is a sin. It is righteous before God, and God will be on our side if we stand against tyranny.
Absolutely. And I can tell you something else. Silence is agreement. So make no mistake about it. For those of you who think, well, somebody else will take this fight on, somebody else will carry that burden, make no mistake, your silence is your agreement. So thank you very much, Pastor. I appreciate you.
God bless you.
You too.
You well.
Folks, that was Pastor Bill Cruz. One of our listeners invited him or asked him to give us a call here. I'm going to have a further discussion with him about this, but I'm going to tell you something right now. What we are looking at here is the face of federal overreach on a level which you have not seen yet. If you are not aware yet of where we are headed, if you don't understand the depth of the depravity that is being fostered upon us right now, in our nation, and specifically now in our region with this new abuse of your landowner rights. And remember, life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness. The right to own property and do with it as you please, without interference. That is one of the basic foundational principles of our liberty. And make no mistake about it, I'm promising you now that they are going to utilize this just like they did when they took over the rivers up in Eminence and the North Fork River up there, and they beat the living tar out of those homeowners. That's why these property rights coalition groups were formed, people. And if you're not a member of one, you better get to one of these groups and join right away. We're going to cover a couple of more of the issues that are reiterated in some of these news stories because, again, I want you to understand the way that they are fostering this propaganda upon you. And so that you are fully cognizant of what you're being fed and what you need to do to rescind and fight back against this. We need to rescind our authority, which, frankly, they've usurped in the first place. But we need to rescind any level of authority that they believe that they have under the Constitution. 90 Days That Will Change the World says, put the government under siege. Put the government under siege. State, federal capitals, I don't care. You guys have been hearing about this guy, Adam Kokesh, who wants to do an armed march with 10,000 people in Washington. How about an armed march of 10, or how about an unarmed march, I should say, a civilly disobedient march of 10 million Americans who say, I've had enough? We'll be right back.
The area's best selection of firearms and ammunition can only be found at West Plains Pawn and Jewelry. Top-of-the-line handguns from Kimber, Smith & Wesson, Ruger, Glock, Beretta, and many more. A wide selection of ammunition, including blanks, centerfire handgun and rifle, rimfire, a variety of shotgun shells, target, and turkey. With new arrivals every week, the area's best selection of firearms and ammunition can only be found at West Plains Pawn and Jewelry, 1713 West U.S. Highway 160, or shop online at westplainspawn.com.
It's a call and make your voice heard on the biggest issues making headlines today, or on absolutely anything in your head. Every call I get goes on the air totally unscreened. It's unpredictable and uncensored, and you'll never know what to expect. Anything can and will happen on the next Alan Combs Show.
And that's who you can catch every weeknight, 9 till midnight. The Alan Combs Show on the Ozarks Best News Talk, 107.1 The Point, Monday through Friday.
What better way to say I love you, Mom, than taking her to Chin's Garden this Mother's Day? All of the ladies will get a free Mary Kay hand lotion, and Chin's will have their delicious dinner buffet all day for only $7.25, featuring roast beef, baked salmon, cornmeal catfish, 3 kinds of shrimp, and sushi, along with your favorite Chinese dishes and homemade cheesecake for dessert. Dine in or call ahead, 256-8999 for carryout. Chin's Garden on Gibson in West Plains for Mother's Day and every day.
Out of 365 days a year, we celebrate holidays, anniversaries, and other important days. But there is one day you look forward to, your birthday.
I wish you a happy birthday.
Ryan's Steakhouse of West Plains is proud to bring you the Birthday Club weekday mornings with Cooper & Company. Our daily winner receives 1 buffet and a drink to Ryan's. Just call your birthdays in weekday mornings with Cooper & Company at 255-0427. Brought to you by Ryan's and the Ozarks Best News Talk.
And happy birthday to you. Cha-cha-cha-cha.
All right. Guys, you got to recognize, I got to tell you something. This segment here that they put in this press release says, for a copy of the Secretary's order. Now, wait a second. Let's remember our language critical thinking skills, right? For a copy of Secretary Ken Salazar's order number 3321 that establishes the National Blueways system, click here. Really? So now we have an interior secretary who is actually passing dictatorial orders upon our nation. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
They're after your water wells.
Yes, they are.
And if you don't believe that, I mean, for those that are skeptical, I mean, type in, there's already areas that it's illegal to catch the rainwater off your roof. It's illegal to have cisterns.
We have that right in West Plains. They charge $2.50 a month per household for rainwater that runs off your roof.
Right. They're after the water. And if everybody here thinks about it, I don't know. I mean, think about it, because we can grow gardens and vegetables and take care of ourselves and feed ourselves and our family if we needed to, because we have our water wells. And besides that, it's not, you know, we don't need to pay for this water. It's water from God. But besides that,
well, it's a water right that belongs to you as a landowner.
As a landowner.
End of argument. I mean, you know, you own the property, you own the water and the minerals and everything else that's underneath it. And, you know, no amount of laws passed by traitors and treasonists can rationalize that ownership away.
Right, and they're after control of all of your water and your water wells, so that they can control you. I mean, it is no minor
Control
thing.
the water supply. They own you outright, lock, stock, and barrel.
I need to mention that there's a new governor candidate for Arkansas, and his name's Curtis Coleman, I believe, and he's a constitutionalist. And I'm going to be trying to find out about him, I think, on May 24th or May 30th. And he's going to be
after you get a chance to sit down and hear about him and do your due diligence on it, give us a call and give us a report. Because I'll tell you what, we got a ton of folks in Arkansas that listen to this program, and I never want to let them feel as if this program doesn't involve them as well. This is a national level issue.
Well, I just want to say Mark Pryor is not for the people.
Mark Pryor is a traitor and should be dealt with as such under the rules of treason in the United States Code of Justice. Let me tell you something, folks. If Mark Pryor represents you, you're listening to the wrong program, because I'm telling you right now, the guy is a traitor and he's a treasonist.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Hey, I want to read you something here that's going to blow your mind. The Cache River National Wildlife Refuge, which is one of their targeted areas here, named for one of the White River's main tributaries. Here you go. This is the key important phrase. Remember, we're using our critical thinking skills to understand exactly what they're saying to us without actually coming right out and saying it, right? This will, quote, protect valuable floodplain habitat through conservation easements and acquisitions from willing landowners. Now, let's understand and evaluate that. This will protect valuable floodplain habitat through conservation easement. Here's what an easement means. It says you own the property, but we get to use it and take it over and do whatever we want with it. And acquisition from willing landowners. If you want to know how willing that acquisition is, go look at the eminent domain law that the treasonous Supreme Court approved that lets government walk in and take and confiscate your land with no oversight, no review, and there ain't a damn thing that you can say or do about it. Ladies and gentlemen, it is theft. It is theft by your government. This will not be an acquisition from willing landowners. They will be offered a pittance for their property. They will be threatened. They will be coerced. They will be persecuted until they either accept an unconscionably low offer or they just give up in absolute resignation. Here's their quote. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service seeks to build on the great conservation work by state, federal conservation, and sportsman partners. Let me tell you something. The Ducks Unlimited, National Wildlife Refuge, Nature Conservancy, Audubon Group, Conservation Fund, Arkansas Canoe Club, and Arkansas Association of Conservation Districts, they are not sportsman partners. They are not. Go look at what the Audubon Society approves. Go look at what the Nature Conservancy groups sponsor and support. If you can tell me that they are willing partners in the world of sportsmen and sportsmanship, you're a fool. You've been drinking their Kool-Aid. Let me tell you, this is the most, I'm telling you. Now, and here's their carrot. Here's the carrot that they dangle. U.S. Department of Agriculture announced in fiscal 2013, working with the Arkansas Association of Conservation Districts to establish priorities, it will commit more than $22 million in soil and water conservation in counties located within the White River Watershed through the environmental, where the heck is it? To commit more than $22 million to soil and water conservation in counties located within the White River Watershed through the Environmental Quality Incentive EQIP program. $13 million of those funds will be directed to pasture land to provide soil and water conservation needs that arose from the drought in 2012. So here's what they're saying. We're going to take 1.3 million people with an economy that generates $1.6 billion, which, by the way, they tout that as if it's some great, magnificent amount of money. But let me tell you something. $1.6 billion is a flea on the elephant's hiney in terms of what the capabilities are and the value is of the property or the overall income of the state of Missouri or the state of Arkansas. This is combined. I mean, look, $1.6 billion was the rounding error on the Senate's lunch bill catering from last year alone. Get with it, people. They don't really care about $1.6 billion in income. They lost that much last week. They can't find it. These new resources will make a real difference on the ground for the people of Arkansas and Missouri. Additionally, the USDA Forest Service manages more than 1 million acres of federal forest land within the boundary of the Blueway and is engaging in dozens of projects aimed at improving habitat within the watershed. Let me tell you what improving habitat within the watershed means. It means that their rights supersede yours. It means that they can take your property from you and betray you and kick you off of the property which you bought and paid for and take control of it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you something. This is Agenda 21 writ large. It's Agenda 21 without any consideration or you don't even have to look for the word Agenda 21. In fact, although it's written all over it, because this is the part that is referenced as the Agenda 21 portion of the America's Initiative. This was from Obama's statement, right? Where was that? Where was that phrase? This initiative is part of President Obama's America Great Outdoors initiative to establish a community-driven. By the way, this from the community organizer who was usurped and taken over our presidency. To establish a community-driven conservation and recreation agenda for the 21st century. Here's what it is. Conservation and recreation for the elite. Slavery for the peons and the peasants in the marketplace and in the arena where they've taken it over. Make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen. This is Agenda 21 writ large. Now, if our governor does not sign the Agenda 21 Prohibition Initiative, which hit his desk yesterday, and he doesn't sign the Second Amendment Preservation Act, and by the way, I'm expecting everyone who is listening to my voice right now, I'm expecting you to call the governor's office and demand that he sign both of these acts and pledge your support to make sure that he is impeached based on the CCW debacle and the second one that he's embroiled in, which is the implementation of Real ID in open violation of federal or state law. Impress upon his office that you will work tirelessly for his impeachment if he does not acquiesce and sign both of these bills immediately. We're not waiting for 14 days. We're not waiting for a veto. If he vetoes these, I'm telling you right now, we need to go after that man with every ounce of energy, effort, funding, whatever it takes to get him removed from office. Then, by the way, guess what else we can get? Right to work. He's the piece of trash that is prohibiting our state from being able to be economically viable, which is why everybody's willing to acquiesce to the federal government when they throw you scrape a few crumbs off of their table, and you're so damn hungry you'll lick them off the dirty floor. I'm telling you, if you allow yourself to be bribed, if you are willing to allow yourself and are willing to commit personal treason against your own best interest, for the sake of a couple of shekels, a couple of gold coins, a couple of silver rounds, shame on you. You're an American traitor. Shame on you. Shame on you for your violation of the oath, which you have. And I don't care whether you've ever actually taken one. You have taken it because you have benefited from the results of what our founders did in a republic that they built that was based on your freedom, your liberty, your opportunity. You've benefited from that opportunity. You've benefited from that liberty. You've benefited from the greatness that this nation has given you. And you've taken that oath, whether you believe you have or not. I'm here to tell you, the National Blueway program is treason and theft. The White River Watershed National Blueway should be fought tooth and nail. And I'm going to tell you, I want a House resolution on this, not a resolution. I want an act that says any federal activity can be, that the citizenry have the right to terminate that activity, irrespective of what they've got to do to accomplish that. Caller, turn down your radio. Irrespective of what they've got to do to accomplish that. Go ahead.
I just want to say, man, I love you, Mike. You're awesome, dude. And I grew up on these waters, these rivers my whole life. and I'm going to help fight no matter what it takes. I'll be making phone calls. I tried to call that number that you sent in. I couldn't get through, so I don't know what it is. But all I know is this, man. We need to stand up. I definitely don't want to be no Judas, and they ain't selling me out for 30 pieces of silver.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate you. Folks, we got to go. You're listening to America's Voice Now. This is my name is Michael Evans. I'll be with you tomorrow morning as well from 6 to 9.
As the details live.
Dave, the bulldozers stopped as soon as rescuers heard a woman's voice coming from the rubble of this clothes factory. Crews grabbed handsaws to cut her free, and crowds filmed on their cell phones as she was pulled out. The woman worked as a seamstress in the factory and survived for 2 weeks on water and dried food. Doctors say she's doing well. More than 1,000 people died in the collapse. Dave.
Simon, a silver spire now tops One World Trade Center in New York City, the building replacing the Twin Towers terrorists destroyed on 9/11. It now stands 1,776 feet tall, the tallest in the Western Hemisphere. They called it a victory vigil in Cleveland.
This is the time when, God takes over and remind us that we are one people.
He was one of the hundreds who rallied yesterday for the women kidnapped, tied up, raped, and beaten for a decade. The suspect, Ariel Castro, could face the death penalty. There's a leak in space that NASA's trying to fix. Fox News Radio's Evan Brown has this live.
Dave, the ISS crew noticed white ammonia flakes flying out from part of the space station. Ammonia's used as a coolant. It could mean a power shutdown is needed, and they're supposed to send part of the crew home to Earth this weekend.
Are we going to be in a good, stable, long-term config so that we can just undock as planned?
We've got a team in place right now that's currently working on the undock.
One of the astronauts on board just tweeted he'd likely be spacewalking tomorrow to try and fix it, Dave.
Having a royal salute at Arlington National Cemetery. Prince Harry laid a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. He'll next visit wounded warriors at Walter Reed National Medical Center. Fox News Radio, fair and balanced.